What's up, family? Good evening from Bali. There he is. Let's go.
What's up? What's up?
Yeah, got the red lights going, man. Don't want that junk light in my eyes late at night.
I noticed. Oh yeah, it's 11-hour difference.
That's right. Come on now.
Oh, Steph Jensen.
Steph in
Morning,
the
Steph.
house. Tulum. To Illuminati representing. What's up, everybody
Peace.
joining? Thank y'all for being here. If y'all just want to type in the comments where you're tuning in from, city, state, nation, wherever you be, DAO, blockchain.
Dow action. Let's go.
Awesome. Well, good to see you, bro. And maybe Zach will pop in, maybe not.
Right?
It's funny, today I was researching a lot about markets and, the crazy shit that's happening in the world. But then I just got into this polarity vortex after this post I did. And, you got in those comments too. And I just started to and I had a deep conversation with my partner about this, like at lunch. Like, why is polarity so, A, confusing seemingly to most people, and B, why is it so triggering? And like thinking
Yep.
about that from like a complete beginner's mind, as if I've never,
Yep.
never thought about it at all, which I've thought about it a lot, but I also
Right.
assume a lot. I have so many
Right.
assumptions. So I wanted to start with like a definition, and I want this to be like, interactive. So anyone that's tuning in, drop in where you're coming in from. Share this live out. We're going to be here for maybe about an hour, and we want questions. We want interactivity, and like the title says, kind of the intention for me here. I'd love to hear what you're bringing, Scott, is to demystify polarity. And this is going to be the name of the masterclass I'm going to run on Monday as well. Is like really breaking it down, like on a scientific level, to the most basic, simple terms that people can understand. And this isn't like abstract woo-woo shit. This is extremely actionable if you, like me, and I'm assuming you're like me because you're a human, want to experience intimate relationships and sexual health and desire in a good way. No matter what your gender or pronoun is, it doesn't even matter. This is going to apply. I promise you. So that's where I'm at. What are you feeling, Scott?
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Definitely reflecting the same. Let's say we got a good amount of lives. I'm surprised it's so early here in the States on the west side. But yeah, absolutely. I would say the same. Just being able to break down the constructs, right? This can be extremely triggering, work, especially when you're deconstructing all of what's been, thrown at you your entire life, right? So, yeah, very much share the same sentiment. Excited to, dive in and see where we go here. So,
Yeah, sweet. So, I mean, I guess it makes sense that people would be confused. And again, people listening, like, jump in the comments and give us your take. Um,
absolutely.
like the word polarity, right? This is the Webster. Like, if you Google polarity right now, this is what it'll read: the property of having poles or being polar. Okay, well, that doesn't tell us much because now we have to define a pole or polar. What is that? So, the orientation of poles or the direction of a magnetic or electric field. So, we're getting closer there. Okay, what is that? The state of having two opposite or contradictory tendencies, opinions, or aspects. So that's another definition of polarity. Now, if I click on the etymology and go down, there's a biological term for polarity, which is the tendency of living organisms or parts to develop in distinct anterior and posterior ends, or to grow in different particular directions, uppermost and lowermost parts of the body. So nowhere here are we talking about relationships or anything that we have come to kind of define as polarity. And
Right.
this is a problem, right? So
Huge problem.
yeah, I mean, maybe the terminology is off. Like, I've resonated with it. The first place I heard it was David Data. I imagine he's not the first one to use it in this context, but this is a curious like way to go about this, because I really believe the battlefield is language, right? The whole problem that most people are experiencing right now in the world, whether it's, Democrat versus Republican, if you're fiscally conservative or you're fiscally liberal, it doesn't matter. If you're on the trans, non-binary tip, if you're about the abortion rights, a lot of it is language. How do we define terms? What do they mean? And what is the emotional charge behind them? And so it's making me really question everything about the polarity concept, even though it's like breathing air to me. But I've also spent maybe, the 10,000 hours studying it, practicing it, and I'm assuming this of a lot of people. So that might be my mistake.
Well, and it's all subjective, right? I got into it on the post yesterday with someone about, the whole the meanings, and it's all subjective and made up and all this stuff. Well, sure, all of human language is, realistically. But again, it's to what you're alluding to, that the meaning, forget everything else. Doesn't matter. The reality is, how are we relating? I mean, with for lack of better terms, no pun intended, how are we relating to relating as it relates to what and how we're explaining things, right? So let's go multi-layers here. It's all about what and how and why certain things mean the things that they do. And further so, that you can label it, put a word on it, whatever you want. It doesn't ultimately matter. What does matter is the energetics, the natural laws behind the principles of what it is. And that's really the bridging of the gap that most people don't have the tools, resources, understanding to put together. And that's where it becomes very triggering. And this, everyone's equal, and middle, all this, mush together stuff realistically. And it's not about equality. It's about everyone having their unique gifts on both sides of the poles, and especially it being non-binary, right? And that's what I think. There's so many intertwinements in there that make it, that people, I feel like when we get triggered in life, right? When we get triggered, we lose all sense of, cognitive ability in the moment, right? We're not thinking straight. We're just flying off the handle with our emotions, right? And I think that alone is what really steers people down the wrong path right out of the gate. No shit, I'm triggered. Fuck all this shit. Like, well, wait, hold on. Let's bring it back for a second and really start to, again, look at how we're relating to words, how we're relating to each other, how we're relating on the grand scheme of it all. All the issues in the world, we've talked about this, right? All come back to the way we relate. That's it.
Yeah, 100%. I love that line of thinking. It looks like Zach's on. I wonder if we can do a three-way here. Zach, see if you can come on screen. I just invited you to. I don't know if it's going to work.
Yes.
Oh, let's go.
What's
it did
good?
work.
I don't have much time, but I wanted to say hi.
Yes. What's up, Zach?
Sweet.
How are y'all, bros?
Great, man. Just diving into the realms.
Yeah, man. Good to see you. Before you go, Zach, we just love a hot take. Why is polarity so hard for people? A, to like wrap their head around or heart around, and B, why is it so triggering to so many people? Most of the comments, if I ever post about it, are not necessarily negative, but they're charged. There's a lot of emotion and energy behind them, and I'm always just like, it's like so interesting to me, even if what I'm saying is pretty like benign and not that crazy.
Yeah, it'll be like, hey, men are kind of masculine, women are kind of feminine, and then everyone's like, no. Yeah, it's crazy. I think the first thing is that polarity, just by nature, is polarizing. So hey, and like a lot of comments and stuff that we're going to talk about is going to have a charge associated to it. So it's like natural that this conversation is highly charging, and we're going to like disagree and debate with each other on a lot of these things. So I guess just like contextualizing it like that is one thing. But I also think that there's a lot of like conditioning that's happened, especially in the West, with regards to like people in their natural state. I mean, I actually read an article yesterday that was like a guy was devastated because his son liked trucks and tractors. And he was like, I've spent my whole life fighting these stereotypes, but now my son likes masculine things. And he was like blown. He was so sad. And it's weird because we're not just allowing people to have natural choice, which I do agree that we should do, like let people choose their innate pull and have more, authority or agency over like how they want to live their life. But to like swing the pendulum so far that we're now like wanting to put a label on someone or not allow labels to exist at all is just too far. So
well, that's it right there. So this is the issue. First part's fine. Like obviously we don't want to shove someone into a label like that like on any subject you pick, abortion, politics, voting, XYZ, just pick it. Forcing someone, like, obviously, like we pro free will. I'm pro free will, pro sovereignty. Do whatever the fuck you want. Do no harm, but take no shit, you know? Now, the second part is the interesting one. There aren't any labels. Let's destroy all labels. Now,
Right.
I understand why someone would think that's a good idea, including my past self, which when you wake up to tyranny, oppression, trauma, systemic colonization, racism, et cetera, sexism. Now we have ageism. We have so many. The first notion is rebellion. It's like, oh, fuck this. We got to tear down the whole system. Let's destroy all the categories because all of this is wrong. All of this is the patriarchy. All of this is evil. All of this is the old white guys controlling us. Whatever.
I gotta go, guys.
Love you, Zach.
Peace.
Talk soon, bro.
See you soon, brother. Great additions. I mean, he said it though, man. It's I think that really highlighting what and how we label things, the meaning that we put behind what, there's nothing innately that is good or bad, right? It's the charge we put behind it. There's truth, right? But it's and again, all for consenting, all the things as it relates to what and how we're going to show up as adults, what we agree to, what we like, what we don't like, all these, that's great. But the minute it becomes, that's bad. Oh, my kid likes trucks and like all this stuff, that's bad. Like, I mean, we're starting to get into really dark territories, as it relates. You're essentially taking away free will, right? And it's ruining the foundations of our culture, of our society, especially in the West. And we've spent time. You're in Bali. Look at their culture, for example. Look at the way that they relate. Look at the balance and harmony, the traditions, the ceremonies, all these different things. Very polarized. And is it negative? Is it bad? Is it all these different? No, not at all. It's not even. It's not even like in the realm of like, possibility of it being some construct or. It's wild. I think traveling, and most people in the West, you look at it, your typical American haven't cultured themselves too much, right? So that adds to it as well. You have no perspective. You've been brainwashed your whole life to think a certain way and subscribe to certain beliefs that just ultimately they're not helping you. They're actually making it a lot worse. Big pharma, processed foods, governments, totally, out of control and manipulated governments at that. I mean, so the cards are stacked against you out of the gate, right? And lots of love. Thank you.
It's interesting. Anyone else that has ideas on this, share them out. Somebody earlier said polarity, as though polarity hasn't moved up to mass consciousness yet in our history and language. And I think that's true. What's really fascinating is, like, if you pick your ancient text, right? It could be Aramaic, even before the Bible, those traditions. It could be the Vedic, it could be the Indian, Sanskrit, it could be ancient Chinese. They all have very clear models and beautiful, often they're poetic and spiritual, and it's not super practical to our minds, but it's all there about yin and yang, right? For example, Shiva, Shakti, masculine, feminine, king, queen, whatever. It's very laid out. It's very straight up. And now someone will step forward right then, and rightly so, and say, well, women were property back then. Kings had 100 concubines, and women were slaves, and there's blah, blah, blah. Yes. And this is, an elite class of tyrants and like the aristocrats. Most people were like you and I, living their best life, trying to at least, and, having children, having families, etc. There were homosexuals back then. Now, it wasn't the norm, obviously, but it existed, and nobody freaked out. Greeks and Romans, if you liked men and you wanted to be with men and you were a man and a soldier or a government person, nobody batted an eye. Nobody, like, it's not even an issue. Now, there might be like different rules, like, hey, if you're going to be on that tip, you know, there's a different like category, but that doesn't mean that it's like you're a lesser citizen. And this, you can look at a lot of different places, and someone, you know, that studied history more than me, I'm sure you can find fucked up situations, of course, where the things went wrong. But my point in all saying all this is that the fact that like right now in courthouses in America, there are real discussions happening of, well, what is a woman? And like, you know, they're like testifying in court, and it's like, can you, so she was a woman, right? It's like, excuse me, no, it was a person who could become pregnant, or like, you know, this like really intense dismantling of language. And like, to me, it's almost like watching a parody video, because you can't even believe it's happening. But this is really happening in the legal system in Canada, in America, in Europe. And to me, it's very disturbing, because it's not about like giving non-cis, normal gendered, non-binary people rights. I think obviously like they're people. Like all people should be free to love, to pursue life, liberty, to pursue happiness, etc. I think the American Constitution or the Declaration got that part right. Now, do we need to change the legal definitions of man and woman and abolish biological imperatives? And everyone needs to learn the pronoun language, and everyone needs to, it's like, whoa, like this is getting out of hand.
Yeah, man. It's shocking. You know, and I've been through this. My sister, she actually has a condition called AIS, androgen insensitivity syndrome, which is actually, you spoke to it. She's literally like Shiva, half an ass. She's born with the genetic makeup of a male and the appearance of a female. So she doesn't have ovaries, essentially. She could never have kids. And so literally those kinds of situations exist. And she identifies as a female, you know, the whole bit. But yeah, when, you know, and again, just to backtrack a little bit and to what you were saying, and I completely agree as well, that everyone should have rights. Everyone should be, you know, equal in the sense of, you know, giving the same opportunities to, you know, thrive and you know, live and do all these different things within society. Absolutely. But when we start to get, you know, muddy in the waters and really, you know, move away from, you know, that structure, the ways that we've for thousands, millions of years, you know, evolved, that's an issue, 100%.
Right.
And so it's a really difficult topic. And I don't think that people understand, again, full freedom, full, you know, autonomy over your body and the way that you show up, all those different things. But also, you know, again, what's it come back to? Polarity. That's ultimately what we're trying to express within these constructs, is what and how am I showing up predominantly? What aligns with who I am to my core, to my nature? The little kid with the trucks, right? What's he showing? I had a beautiful representation. A girlfriend of mine sent a video of her, her and her husband were out, you know, with their friends, you know, kids, whatever. And she made a point. She was like, it's funny how even at a young age, children, you know, gravitate towards a certain pole. He was watching his dad and his friends jump in the water, and he was getting and he started jumping in. And he banged his nose up and got all bloody, and he still wanted to go. The little girl babies off to the side were just hanging out, just being quiet and calm, and were, you know, just kind of to themselves and enjoying, you know, the whole thing. What is this? It's polarity from the, you know, out of the gate, right? This is how we're, you know, this is nature, you know, at play. And there's nothing wrong with it, you know, you know, push agendas, and especially as relates to in the classroom, and bringing all this, like the sexual talk to, you know, to children, and them trying to like navigate all this stuff at such a young age. What are we doing? Right? And it's because we don't know how to relate. We've lost our way as a collective, as a society, to be able to communicate what and how we're feeling and how we want to show up within given containers, especially intimate ones.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, you don't need to look very far. Like divorce rates, domestic violence, sexual abuse, it's writings on the wall. And it's been that way for a while. Certainly, I don't pretend that the past was magically better. I think this problem has been with us for a long ass time. And it's time to, this is the whole idea, like the New Age movement or consciousness expansion or, doing plant medicine in the Amazon. What's the point of all that? Well, the point of all that is to increase consciousness. What is consciousness? It's awareness and it's self inquiry of what am I doing and what are the causes and effects I'm creating. And if you're creating suffering in the world, if you're creating suffering in your family, if you're creating suffering for a nation that you're supposed to be responsible for ruling or influencing, well, something's wrong there because your consciousness is allowing you to do that, which means you're unconscious, right? You're not considering the actions you're taking. And so what's the core of that? Well, it's men and women having children, which is how the human species is here. That doesn't mean everyone needs to be a breeder and, be cisgendered and have children. That's not what that means. But it does mean that our literal DNA and our species has gotten to this point because of a set of principles and structures. And they are sacred. I actually think they're perfect the way they are. And the audacity, and I'm not under any illusions that like some of these people aren't like righteous, real believers and activists. I know some are, and I know they have great intention. I think some are just straight up, I don't want to use the word evil, but, trying to, for like some of the crazy shit you see, we don't even need to get into it because that's not what this talk's even about. But
No.
What you're mentioning with school and education and like exposing like 6-year-olds to like, sexual, like it's like we don't need to go down that path and assume that, wait, nature fucked up. Actually, there aren't genders. Man and woman's a complete construct. We can do better. And by the way, I have a political agenda behind it. It's like, whoa, no, thank you.
No, that's it. That's really what it comes down to. And I think that, it's pretty crazy to see it all kind of, play out right now. And, again, back to what you were saying though, too, is this isn't, I posted about this the other day. I think there's, on the other side of polarity, on the other side of the token, it's understanding too that, not everyone wants monogamy. Not everyone wants marriage. Not everyone wants children. What we're speaking to here is the general principalities of what and how a balanced container truly can be and should be for the human species to continue to evolve. I mean, we got here, and I think this is, again, your post yesterday, labeling something as an ideology, yeah, there we go, is absolutely, is nuts. Is absolutely crazy to think that for the millions of years that we've evolved and everything that the human species has gone through to get to this point, and nature's laws, everything surrounding what and how we've evolved, to think that masculine and feminine dynamics and energetics are just ideologies, like,
it's hard to even imagine how that could be. I mean, it's not that hard to imagine. This is something I've been studying in philosophy, and Jordan Peterson is, the famous person who's brought this to the collective. It's this whole idea, which apparently a lot of this originated in the Frankfurt School of Philosophy, which was, late 1890s, early 1900s. These are a bunch of German and French and some British philosophers that basically are like, we can dismantle the state using language, and we can dismantle categories. And this is applying to everything: education, gender, sexuality. This is applying to capital markets. This is applying to psychology and religion. And they were right about a lot of stuff. They had really interesting things to say because they're basically questioning all the assumptions that we've had in our like cute Christian post-Enlightenment culture. Basically, since the 1700s, the West has been on this bender of rationalism and human willpower making us equal to God or leaving God behind, right? Nietzsche says God is dead through technology, through capital markets, nation states, et cetera, et cetera. And it also led to World War I and II, which devastated the planet. and then shifted a lot of things since then. And that's kind of what we're inheriting, is this last 80-ish years where things have gotten really, really, really accelerated, including the masculine feminine dynamics. Because within the last 80 years, you know, women have gotten, you know, not only the right to vote, but have been equalized in the workplace in a lot of ways. Birth control is advanced, and family structures have been challenged or completely changed. And now we have a society which doesn't really understand how to navigate why the marriage rate is less than 50-50. You're more likely to get divorced if you get married than stay together, which is crazy when you think about it.
And that's even let's even and then what's skewed though too? What's the media skewing in the whole thing as well? It's like I was reading some article. Yeah, the the marriage, the divorce rates been on the decline the most since 1970 in one study, and then on another it's like, well, it's still 50%. Like and then this and that, it's all over though. It's absolutely infiltrated with bias and agendas, and that's a whole another conversation. So what's actually going on? What's really going on? Because they don't know. No one's going to report on the truth. The media, especially from a controlling aspect, governments, all this stuff, is there to dilute the truth, right? We've seen it time and time again. Continuing.
No.
Oh, the mass shootings and all this stuff. Oh, what's going on? All these different things. What's it back to? The way we relate. If you look at every kind of issue on a large scale, on a mass scale right now in society, what's it all come back to when you really break it down? The way we relate.
Yeah. And there's polarity in all types of relationships, like colleague, friend, sports team, your boss or your mentor, whatever. But specifically, the most powerful place it manifests is in romantic relationships and
Yep.
your lover, your partner, your husband, your wife, etc. And so let's kind of get into that, because like framing this conversation, we can get down this rabbit hole that we're on right now, which I think is amazing. But I want to make this more practical.
It's not as digestible. I don't think it starts to get a little bit challenging for a lot of people. Agreed.
And there's a lot of truth to it. I do believe on some level that there is an intentional, and I don't know who or why people are doing this, I can imagine, but there's intentional forces, let's say, that want to destabilize the relations between the masculine and feminine, because then that destabilizes a bunch of other things, and then there's opportunity to, at best, sell us shit we don't really need. At worst, completely fuck up the structure of the community. So I think there's real shit going on here. Consciously producing human. Not sure who that is. I feel like I've seen your handle before, but thanks for your comments. Assuming you are a female, I don't know. Experienced a taste of the healthy polarity between my partner recently throughout the day, where both of us were leaning into our masculine and feminine. I was speechless to realize that power. Huge. And then she said, my parents have extremely imbalanced polarity. Join the club. And the separation that ultimately led to the divorce several years was very toxic. I mean, this is great fodder right here. When you are in a relationship, masculine and feminine, could be the same sex, doesn't matter, masculine and feminine, and each person is fully owning their energy. So the masculine person is direct, they're leading, they're containing, they're penetrating with their energy. Maybe they're the one paying for dinner, they're leading the conversation, they're leading the physicality, they're leading the energy, the direction. The feminine partner is radiant. They're expressing, they're voicing desire, they're using their body, using their emotion, their mind to express beauty, flow. They're using that to also tune in and give feedback and express desire. Yes, this, not that. I feel this, I want that. And it's just informing the whole field. When that's fully owned on both sides, I mean, This is amazing. It's like a superconductor. It's like a battery is operating at full charge. You're going to be better in bed. I mean, this is the obvious one. You're just like the sex in that state is going to be a peak. It's going to be the best thing ever. But let's move back from the bedroom, because that's obviously where everyone wants to end up, and that's where most people get into this stuff. Finances. Who's navigating what? Say you're living with your husband and you're trying to navigate finances. Well, that polarity is going to make that fucking great. Decision making. Where should we go? What should we do? Where should we, put our attention? That's going to be strong. Man can decide, contain, direct. Woman's an oracle. She's going to feel, sense, and intuit and help inform the man so they can make decisions together. Amazing. Raising kids, amazing. You're going to have both nurture and leadership. You're going to have protection and provision. You're going to have emotion and intellect. Living in community, chop wood, carry water, getting resources, allocating them, great. You have someone who's going to actually go outside the community, maybe into some danger, and achieve, hunt, protect, war, trade. And you're going to have someone who's fully operating the social sphere. Who needs what? What are the emotions feeling like? How can I create, craft, gather, intuit, mystically connect to source, God, and each other, and hold that cohesion? And this is just the general way that the masculine and feminine have led humanity for all time. This is how tribes work. This is how a corporation works when it's healthy. This is how a nation or government works when it's healthy. They all have this polarity. And I think, like this person sharing, when you feel that with a partner, when you actually live inside of that, like you just know, like there's no other way to do it, because it's completely natural to your DNA and to your being.
Yeah, well said. And you can really take it that deep into so many different, areas of what and how things operate, again, from nature's laws, from the survival, the evolution of humanity. And that alone just proves the point of the importance. And I think that when we speak to things like technology and, modern day, just ease to, get on your phone, order food, it's here in 20 minutes, right? There's no primal factors that play into that. It's like, oh, here, boom. So you especially as a masculine even, are actually, moving away from that natural pull of being a provider, of being a hunter, gatherer, that kind of stuff, right? I mean, it's when you start to really look at things with a magnifying glass, you start to understand why we're at where we're at in the grand scheme of it all. And I think that that's what makes it even more difficult, especially when you don't have the tools or resources to be able to break things down and understand them from a nature kind of standpoint, right? So that's really what it all comes back to, is what and how and why have things evolved in the way that they have. Well, and again, back to polarity. It's that simple, and it's really starting to break down the constructs and the conditioning and the overall standpoint of eluding ourselves from truth. And so it's a very important, and I think we've spoken on this a lot, especially in the last couple months, and what's what we've seen, and what's going on in the world, and just the amount of charge behind disconnection and grievances about whatever doesn't ultimately matter. It's all the same. It's all stemming from the same place.
Yeah. Well, I think, unfortunately, because the masculine leading the world right now, which it is, and that's generally how it's worked. And that doesn't mean they don't have super strong feminine partners that are also leading the world with them.
There it is. Yep.
So it's a co-led thing. It's not just the patriarchy, right? All these guys have
That's
wives.
a really good point. Something
They
that's
have
not
queens.
even put out there either. Yes.
Yeah. And that's real. And a lot of people, never mention that. But yeah, like Hitler's girlfriend, Eva von Braun, or whatever her name was just as much influencing some of his decisions as he was, I'm sure. And there's accounts of this, right? So,
behind every
there's
great leader is a great woman, and
right,
it might not be in the
exactly,
limelight, right, all the time, but she's there. Or
totally,
whatever, the masculine, feminine doesn't ultimately matter. If it's a masculine woman that's leading, she's got a feminine counterpart, right? That's
right,
supporting in that sense.
yeah. You can hear the Bali dog party behind me here. So ridiculous. It's one of those things you just have to let go of, like recording, or it's like, okay, like I'm in Indonesia, but
Here we are, the Bali street dogs. Oh man,
to the point with like tactically in a relationship, and I see Veronica on here. What's up? I see a few people I recognize on here, and love for more of y'all to drop in the comments if you're listening. I feel like
everyone's intently listening. Please, questions or anything as it relates to what we're speaking to or what have you. Would love to hear some thoughts on what and how you're navigating and just how we can support.
Yeah. So Mia's saying the problem is not about the terms we're using; it's the charge and conditioning attached to them. 100% yes. That's really the whole issue with even this topic of polarity. It's like, why is it so triggering? It's like, well, for a lot of people, they associated and this is like a new thing which I didn't know about until I started researching more accounts mainly on Facebook. I haven't seen it as much on Instagram, but there's like people that are like they post a lot about bashing polarity work or polarity coaches, which I was just like, wow, this is a thing. Like, there's enough people doing this work to be bashed and like called out. And obviously, I can see how a lot of people could, take something like this and abuse it or distort it.
Yeah.
And, if I ever do that, I want to be called out. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, maybe we need a new term, but the whole idea that, masculine and feminine beings, men and women, could learn a skillful way to relate and create more love and intimacy and harmony between each other, and that's not a good thing, is insane to me. That's like saying like, oh, we're doing good, we're doing great. Like we don't need to learn about that or practice that or teach that. We're doing great. Just go get out there and do your thing. Get on Tinder, date, polyamory, divorce, single mothers raising most of the men, which are leading to other issues. It's like it's insane to think that we shouldn't be addressing this, and it's actually absurd that we're not addressing it at a deeper level. Not that that's the whole idea here. Like most of the clients I've worked with, and most of the people I imagine that will be part of Primal Polarity, are not going to be in like the crisis mode where they're completely,
right,
at a trauma level with this stuff.
Right.
Those people obviously need a different kind of support because they need to actually create safety and like heal so they can even be available to have intimacy. This is more about the people who are dating, do have money or success, or maybe are married or in a long-term relationship,
right,
and it's not working, or they've hit a wall, or they don't understand why the same patterns are coming up. And a lot of this stuff has to do with polarity reversal. And it has to do with women that are locked in their masculine, hustling, and feeling burnt out or feeling not met by men in their life. They feel like they're attracting maybe more feminine, new age men or spiritually bypassing men or narcissists, whatever. And then a lot of men are wondering why they can't create a successful relationship with a woman who stays with them and is loyal and is creating harmony and sexual attraction. And they're wondering why they're attracting women that maybe are more masculine. And they're feeling like they're stuck in more feminine qualities, like they're unable to take direct action. Their bank account is fucked up, or their purpose isn't online, and they don't have boundaries or discipline. And so this is the common kind of territory that I see all the time. And literally, I mean, it's crazy because I was just looking at my analytics today because I was trying to apply for get the more monetization tools on Facebook and Instagram. I was talking to a meta bot, which is some guy in India or something. It was ridiculous. But yeah, most of my audience is feminine. So it's like 70-30 at this point.
Wow.
70% on here and Facebook is women. And
Wow.
I'm just like, what's going on here? And most of the content that gets hits, although it also gets, the trolls, is all this stuff around masculine and feminine. Because a lot of people are just like, more of this. Like, what the fuck's going on? Like, I want to learn about this. I want to hear about these experiences. And, that's how I got into it. Because I was like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
Like, why am I attracting these kinds of women? Why can I not create a successful relationship? Why is nobody teaching this? Certainly none of us learn this in school, not even
No,
1%.
no. It's really difficult. And again, it's if people actually went with their own inner, compass and leaned towards what suited them, what felt right, what was in alignment for what they truly wanted, they would start attracting more of what they truly wanted. But the problem with conditioning, subconscious programming, trauma, all these different things is that I don't even know where to start. It's like you can feel it. I've felt my masculinity and the way that I've approached things my entire life. I've never really gone away from it. It's always been there. And it's driven me and it's created, different opportunities and relationships and all these different things. And my genuine desire to serve the feminine, like I'm supercharged, but in a positive way, to be devotional to the feminine, to take care of the feminine. I just knew. I mean, when you were a kid, it was like it felt weird. I would go on a date with a girl, and if I didn't pay, it just felt weird. I'm like, why does this feel weird? Why am I? I like doing this. Is that bad? Is that you start to question these things, right? It's your own inner barometer that's telling you again, and back to the children, playing the kid, the little baby boy jumping in the water and scraping up his face and just having the time of his life, right? It goes all the way back, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that there's so many ways to peel it, but the principles, and this is what we speak to, and I think that what we'll be diving into in Primal Polarity more is what and how can we set up a framework and a way for people to understand these things at a more elementary level, and then start to apply them and grow and learn and evolve and become more educated as it relates to all. Because it's really not, once you have the understanding, again, language is all subjective. It's the energetics behind it. So once we have those things in place, we can apply it to anything, right? And it actually gets fun because then you're inspired. You're excited to be showing up in your truest pole and operating from a place of balance. It's not to take away from your femininity. I love, and what I've learned from being and living in spiritual communities where we met in Bali, right? And now in Tulum, and, the last couple of years, there's great principles to it. I've learned a lot about mind-heart cohesion. The problem is when you stay in it for too long, when you're consistently, and you see this all over. I see this all over Tulum. So many feminized guys, so many masculinized women, right? And they mean well. They truly do. They really have the best intent. They really are trying and doing the work and all these different things. And then sometimes doing and spiritually bypassing as well, as a byproduct, because they just don't have, they're ignorant to what actually is a principle of law within nature. So I think that's what again, and what I truly desire and want to bring to the space as well, as a guide, as a coach, whatever, is being able to sincerely help people, and heal and grow. There's plenty of polarity coaches, some that we know, that are so polarizing, so brash, so just overly blunt with their approach. And it doesn't serve anyone that's really starting to get into the realms and understanding the languages and the energetics and everything as it relates to it all, because it just pushes more people away. It's just like the political landscape in the United States, Republican, Democrat. I don't see, to be honest, I don't see a way out of a civil war in 2024 at the way that things are going, because people can't even have conversations anymore without it blowing up in everyone's face.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole nother can of worms of polarity, different kind of polarity, but similar dynamics. It's funny because to like get to like more practical ideas around this, um, the simplest way I can put it is that the masculine is decisive and the feminine is surrendered.
There it is.
And that's like that's the terms I've used from my own kind of personal philosophy for years, and kind of I've worked them into my own model that works for me, and it seems to have worked for a lot of the people I've coached, although they had to come up with their own principles. I've been studying Ray Dalio a lot. Ray Dalio is
Yeah.
at Bridgewater Associates, like biggest hedge fund, and his book's called Principles. He's all about principles, and I think he's a fucking G. And the Stoics are about this too. Marcus Aurelius and those guys, if you read them, which I've been getting into them again, it's all about principles. Like a man has to have principles, and a woman has to have principles too. But I think it's even more important for the masculine. And why is that? Because it helps you decide. And when you're decisive, you're going to create more ability to make money, be sexually potent, be intelligent, and manipulate and gather resources from your environment, whether they're physical or whether they're mental or status or whatever, right? And this is the other thing that triggers, I think, the core problem with a lot of this languaging. And like, you just got to speak freely. And that's why, like, what you're referring to, we won't name names, but there's some polarity coaches out there that are just playing off this. And it's just brutal, blunt language about men and women and like feminine submission and masculine dominance. And, you know, that's a realm to play in, certainly. But that language is very weighted because it brings up wounds of women being suppressed, and it brings up wounds of patriarchy and all this stuff. And like, those are very real. And I want to honor that in the space. I don't want to just like ignore that energy. Now, what is annoying is no matter how, and this is a great lesson, no matter how careful I am when I speak about this, and I can speak in philosophical language, I can speak in indirect language. It's kind of like Taoist or like very poetic. No matter what, someone will accuse me. It's almost like I just said, like, women should submit to men. Like that was in one of the comments. Like I just literally wrote like, you know, a man thrives when he's in a relationship with a polarized woman. That's all I said. Pretty radical. And the first comment is a paragraph, like not saying this is what I said, but in a way of being like, no woman wants to submit to a man if it's not natural to her, and no blah, like the amount of inference and assumption that's packed in this language is profound, and that's partially because of wounds that have just we've all suffered, and our parents suffered, and their parents. So it's like a generational thing. And on the other side is there are no good role models. Point at one celebrity, one politician, or one person that we all know that is embodying a healthy masculine-feminine dynamic. I'll wait. Jill and Joe Biden? You think those guys got high polarity? It's so bad. Joe doesn't even know if he is married. He's completely confused.
And then the other side of the poll with old Trump is like, I mean,
oh God.
Well, that's just the toxic. That's just the toxic masculinity, right? It's like
they actually have polarity, though. I'm sure, but it's just like the worst possible. Like imagine.
Exactly. No. That's exactly what it is. It's and then you go to the other flip side of the absolute worst in polarity and toxicity and whatnot. That's not what we're speaking to here, right? I mean, It's leadership, providership, and structure, right? These are the core principles of masculinity, right? And until men, especially the men, again, leaders, are able to put these in place and do them in a consistent, healthy, and just, well thought out way, will things continue. And there is, again, the agendas aside of like, compressing or just eluding people and just taking, kind of the rug pulling the general public, the rug, of actual truth. That's real, right? So, Yeah, there's not exactly. I'll wait. Name one public figure that really truly is stepping out and speaking to, because everyone's scared of getting canceled now.
That's it. That's it. And that honestly has come up for me around even launching this course. And like, and part of me at this point is like, I've already been canceled a couple times. Like people have tried to cancel me already. So I already know what it feels like. And they weren't successful, obviously. They didn't get deplatformed or like, because what cancel culture is based on, and this is another thinker I've been getting into a lot recently, Rene Girard, all about scapegoating and mimetic rivalry. So cancel culture is a very old thing, but because of the internet now, it's on a fucking rampage, and it's all about finding a scapegoat as the mob. So when you don't have strong principles and you're afraid of being seen as an individual who's saying something that could ruffle feathers, you gather in a mob and you find a scapegoat and you lynch them. And energetically, you can do that by saying, this person is transphobic or this person is racist. Back in the day, they literally stoned people or hung them or like, cut their head off. And this is a function of the unconscious in humanity that cannot deal with inner turmoil, aka emotions, essentially, and sensations, which become thoughts, that are just really uncomfortable. And sometimes they're so uncomfortable that you have to be violent because you don't know how to reconcile them. And that's essentially what's happening. And so why is polarity important? To bring it full circle? Because if you can learn how to be romantically, intimately fulfilled at the deepest level with a partner, a girlfriend, or husband, whatever, you set yourself up for the most potent healing force there is, which is that kind of love, right? And there's other kinds of love, right? There's love for your brothers, there's love for your sisters, there's love for God, there's love for nature. But the core love of the masculine and feminine is the most healing, powerful force. It's also the most creative force. It's literally what created you and I, okay? So I was created because my parents had a polarized moment where they had sex, and that energy of love and devotion was so powerful and biologically so powerful that it created me. And I exist because of that. So that's at the level we're talking. And that can't be downplayed. That cannot be downplayed. You can't pretend that that's not important. There's no future for humanity if we don't figure that out. And like children being raised without trauma because they see mom and dad are in a polarized relationship that's loving and deep and intimate and has a high level of consciousness, aka their communication, aka their sexual, energy, aka their emotions, and they're clear. And that's the core thing. It's like Dalai Lama said it, although the Dalai Lama might be a shill because he was promoting some things that I think are absurd, but he did say some pretty dope shit. Like, if we taught a generation of children to meditate, again, raise consciousness, which is what meditation does if you practice it enough, you could wipe out trauma and a lot of the issues in one generation if every child was actually able to achieve that. And I think the same thing, if you had one generation of parents who practiced the art of polarity, aka the art of attraction, energetics, the art of masculine, feminine dance, decisive surrender, protection, feeling, masculine provision, feminine oracle of like opening the heart, opening his love, we would see a complete change in one generation of the entire species. And that's not trivial. That's amazing.
100%. Absolutely. Well, and I think again, this is a lot of what we will be diving into in the primal polarity container, right? Is history, evolution, everything as it relates to what and how this actually has substance, especially in modern day, and that we've essentially pulled back. We've gone away from the core principles that have actually got us to where we're at in again the evolutionary cycle, right? And if you look at and you want to take it one step further too, if you look at humanity in general, especially in the modern day era, the book The Fourth Turning, there's a great YouTube video out on it that basically gives the cliff notes of what and how we go in 80-year cycles across, modern civilization. Where are we at right now in the fourth turning? Crisis mode, right? For the next 5 or so years. So this right now is the time, right, to completely rewrite and change and shift from all the bullshit that we've been fed and lied, to and manipulated and all these different things, right? So this is the opportunity, for everyone to step truly into their power again and thrive, as humans, right? It's what it is. Everything is in cycle in nature, and you look at Greg Braden talks about it all the time, and down to a molecular level. You start to look at in DNA and everything is like boom, 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 cycles and the infinite loop that is, but it's all, again, it feels honestly, and especially in this lifetime, it feels like it's been a steady, decline, but the reality is that, again, we have the opportunity now to, I feel, especially in the evolutionary phase that we are in, and the technology and the knowledge and the wisdom and all these things to supersede and step beyond what we're capable of. With all the things considered, how can we work in synchronicity with nature and technology? How can we serve ourselves and each other in ways that are actually going to be conducive towards being in balance, truly in balance.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing about, the fourth turning, and these ideas are coming up in so many different places. Like I was saying, Ray Dalio talking about,
market cycle,
how empires rise and fall in his book Principles, and he's referring to the same. What's the name of that author for the fourth turning?
It's a great. I can't remember off the top of my head, but if you look at it, you look it up on YouTube. Fourth turning. There's a great 10-12 minute Cliff Notes kind of review of it that breaks down just what and how it goes, essentially the explanation from the Industrial Revolution, outside of World War II, that ending and starting a whole new way of living, and to now to where we're at, almost 80 years later. Then coming out the other side, hopefully with the tools and resources to actually thrive. And it's really, and again, we take it one step further. We're speaking to with cycles and evolution and great empires falling and all this kind of stuff. I believe as humans, as again, in the evolutionary cycle, considering even the last 1,000 years, right? 1,000 years and the millions of years of evolution and where we're at, what's transpired, that we can absolutely eradicate the things that aren't serving us anymore, the things that don't line up with truth. Period. If we can somehow all just again get into balance, right? And it starts here. It starts with how we relate. Every issue that you want to break down and look at, everything comes back to the way that we relate. And if it's not in balance, there's your problem.
So true. The authors are William Strauss and Neil Howe. So it's the Strauss and Howe model.
There we go.
I'm gonna actually, I don't know if I'm gonna fully read it. I might get the audio, but I'm gonna get into that because it's so important to understand. And I think a lot of people don't realize what's coming. I really hope it's not gonna be, I don't believe it will be like a kinetic war. Like, I don't think like there's going to be a World War III with like China fighting you. Like at this point, like that would just like, if not wipe us out, like take us to a point where we're completely fucked. I don't think it's going to happen. And I think people know that.
It would decimate everything.
Yeah.
100%.
And the people at the top know that, and they don't want to do that because they have a lot of money tied up in all this shit. Now, there will be economic warfare. There already is. There will be civil warfare that will be kind of scary. And I think the U.S. is, like you said, headed that way, which is intense. And there's going to be, the economic depression. Some say this year, next 5, whatever. It's coming. It's going to be like 2008, but it's going to be bigger, and it's going to be painful. And so, that's not to spread doom and gloom. It's just like watching the cycle of history closely and watching the market and all the factors. that are all connected because we're all connected now. That's happening. And what's going to be important then? You know, most people, if you're watching this on an iPhone and you have Instagram, you're going to be fine. You're going to have food, water, and shelter. You know, you might have to cut back on what you're doing and change the way you live, but you're going to be fine. But what's going to matter in those times? Polarity, your relationship, your intimacy, your emotions. That's what's going to matter. That's what's going to be tested. That's going to be where the core of your energy is. So, you know, there's no way to avoid relationship in this lifetime. Humans are built for it. And if you just understand that there are rules to the game and you just practice them, boom, that's it. Now, interestingly, you know, when we have this this course launching, and for anyone who wants more info, I'm going to do a masterclass on Monday, the same time at 8 a.m. Central on Monday. So DM me. I'm going to post that today and send out the invite so you can get registered for that. You know, and this is going to lead to our course, which is going to be 8 weeks, Primal Polarity, which me, Scott, and then Zach, who was on at the very beginning. Which shout out to the people who've been on here the whole time. I think
yeah, literally, it's been just I just tuned in. It's exciting. I know it's a very, you know, it's a very, you know, intriguing topic, right? This is what, you know, your following has spoke a lot to. Now my following really, you know, it's been a huge shift now that I've really dove into, you know, this being like the primary focus and what I speak on most, you know, relations and specifically polarity. It's been people eat it up because everyone just doesn't know what they don't know, right? So you don't know what you don't know, right? And that's what, you know, what we're here to, you know, bridge the gap and bring value, you know, to people so they can actually start, you know, being well fed and well fucked, as you so eloquently, you know, put it, right?
That's where this leads. Is we want to be fully expressed. People want to be happy and healthy, and part of being happy and healthy is sexuality, straight up. And the most powerful way to experience sexuality is with someone that you love deeply and that you are connected with in a highly charged way. That's primal. This is why it's primal polarity. It's not intellectual. It's not abstract, and you know, it's very physical and emotional, and it's deeply. It's almost, there's nothing more powerful. Like, you could drink 10 cups of ayahuasca, you can climb a mountain, you can become a billionaire. Any of those people will tell you that the most powerful experience was being in love, or being, you know, radically embodied in love in sexuality. So this is like the core stuff. And I mean, this is why I'm even in this conversation or about this stuff, is because this was kind of my journey of what the fuck's going on. Like, you know, my own issues with my mother and the mother wound and like all that stuff. Freud was absolutely right with that for the masculine. And then going into relationships, getting betrayed, experiencing infidelity, experiencing failure, experiencing emasculation, all that stuff. And then I was like, what the fuck is going on? And like, my dad didn't show me how to do it. His dad didn't show him how to do it. So I had to figure this shit out. And then then you have to practice it. That's the other thing. You can read about polarity, and there's amazing books out there. You know, there's amazing books. David Data, it's a great place to start, even though people shit on him. And a lot of people are, you know, saying that blah, blah, you know, you got to give the man his due. He broke the territory open, you know, in the 80s and 90s when he got started. And we're still using a lot of this stuff and advancing it. But the books are amazing, but ultimately you're going to have to practice this. And so if you're already dating, or you're already married, or you're already in a relationship, great. You have the dojo, and it's going to bring a lot of shit up. If you're not in a relationship and you're like, you know, online dating or swiping or, you know, going on dates or whatever, even better, because now you can start it from the beginning and practice polarity from the very beginning of when you meet someone. And that's going to be a game changer for your life and for that relationship if it's going to actually work. 100%. So that's the beauty of this, and that's why, you know, singles and couples are going to be welcome into the program. This stuff definitely applies to both, and a lot of folks will stop and be like, wait, but I'm gay, or I'm non-binary, or I identify as they. Cool, that's awesome. I've had multiple transgender clients. Not an issue. Same energetics are going to apply. Now, the problem that people will have, and maybe if not for you, if you have this problem, is the labels or the categories. Because we're going to call it masculine and feminine. You can call it yin and yang. That's cool. Solar and lunar. There's a lot of different ways to talk about it from nature, but it's the same energy, and it's going to play out the same way. And you don't have to believe me. Like I'm not an expert. You don't have to believe anything I'm saying. Go practice it. Experiment. I'll bet you 1 ETH that it's going to play out in a certain way. Even though it's going to play out differently, it's going to play out in a predictable way. And there's nothing you can probably do to change that. And that's okay. Just like there's nothing you can do to prevent the sun rising tomorrow.
There it is.
I would probably get canceled if I said that in the wrong room, but there it is.
That's what it is for me anymore. I don't care. Cancel me. I will fight for what I believe is true and what I see consistently to be true within nature, within the real world, with all these things to help people. That's what this is about. We both got our own individual businesses, and even different things entrepreneurially, right? That are driving us. But this work specifically, this I know at whatever level and how it evolves, from a guiding, coaching kind of front, will absolutely be the focal point of my life on whatever scale, whether that's doing group coaching, working with people here and there, or whatever. It doesn't ultimately matter, or just me applying it in my relationships, or how I'm navigating it. It doesn't. The once you understand the weight, the importance of this, once it hits you, you're gonna be like, this is it. This is where I can thrive as a human being. Everything else, goes by the wayside. Not that spiritual principles aren't and practices aren't important. Obviously, healthy, eating and lifestyle and exercise, all this stuff, great, amazing. Shadow work, somatic practices, trauma informed, great, all amazing. But this is the life force. This is what's driving us all to be and show up as our ultimate and optimal self. And this is primal polarity. So
Fuck yeah. Well said, bro. Yeah, Cody, Victoria, Mia, Oana, I think you've been here the longest, or you've been watching. A lot of people have come on and out. So if you're still here and you're vibing with us, send me or Scott a DM. We'll get you all the link to the masterclass on Monday. And if you want to learn more about the program, we're also happy to share about that, because that's going to be launching very soon. Fuck yeah, Scott. I think this is a good place to stop. Definitely, for future reference, it'd be cool to have, because I feel like there's so much context we just laid, and it'd be cool to, the next live we'll just go pure tactical. And
straight up.
Some of this stuff just needs to be recorded. I'm not going to save this. I'm going to delete this. But in a more succinct way, just recording, mental note to just have all right, here's the video on context. So it's just here it is. It's be important to save some of this stuff. And this is good because it's all happening in real time. I've had these conversations so many times, and now I'm actually formulating how to present this in recorded, a course style, basically.
Yeah, and speak to specific topics as it relates to the polarity, realms and what and how you can start actually implementing and showing up, on both sides. Again, from what is going to serve you, and your beloveds, and anyone else that you are in relation with, that you want to create more intimacy, or whatever business relationship, all these different things. It all applies, right?
Totally.
What it is.
Yeah.
Really.
And Mia, I'm not going to save this one because we're kind of just going off the cuff. But if you want a saved version, I have the first masterclass. Shoot me a message. I'll let you download it. And then the masterclass Monday will be recorded, and that'll be more formal presentation of a lot of this stuff.
The recorded one you did was, it's next level. Super, super powerful stuff. for anyone that's you know tuned in and wants to understand things even more at a like a philosophical and evolutionary you know kind of perspective and how things have you know gone. I think it's a great place to start, and then you know piecing together prior to our you know launch you know to you know kind of fill in the missing you know fill in the gaps, what have you. So
Exactly. That's
oh
it,
man,
fam. Thank y'all for being here. Sending y'all love. See you soon, bro.
cheers. Talk to you soon, brother.